Have you been wondering where all those coaches went? Today we're going to find out. Yo, what's up everybody? Today we are breaking down where all of these coaches have went. We've got OCs, DCs, and head coaches going all over the place. So today Brian and Brennan are here to break it down on the Too Much Fantasy Football show. Brennan, how are we doing today?
Oh, just another day in paradise, getting ready for this hot summer in Southern California. As I wear a flannel, of course, but I work in 65-degree office, so.
There we go. You get the bundle up while you're in the office, and you got to shed it as you're walking out the door. That style.
Yeah. Just show everybody how fat I am as I walk out taking this flannel. It hides my fat really well.
Gotta love that. You got it's. I was gonna say Christmas season. That's when you bulk up, but you're still shedding those Christmas pounds. Some of those take a little longer than others. It's okay.
I just blame being your dad.
There you go. See, you've got that excuse. Dad bod. It's expected. I'm rocking no kids over here, so I've got no excuses. I've got to just go lay out in the sun and sweat it out, and apparently ignore all suntan lotion options. But yes, like I said, today we're breaking down the coaching changes, trying to figure out which ones we like, which ones we don't, who has a good fit, and who just filled the spot because there was no one else left. Washington. But before we get going into that, let's talk a little news because since we've been gone, we've had some news break and we have to talk about it. Justin Jefferson's probably the most exciting. We've been talking about it for, since the draft. When the hell are they going to sign him? They finally did. 4-year, $140 million. The guy is staying in Minnesota. We're excited, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I'm super excited. I like when guys like that get paid and everything else like that, and they stay with the team forever. I just know CD and Jamar are just like, this is what we're gonna get. Like they're probably just grinning ear to ear, like this is amazing. But
right,
Vikings got it done first. The Vikings got it done first, and now the Bengals and the Cowboys are gonna have to, do something right there at that level, or it's gonna potentially be more. So.
I think it is maybe a sigh of relief for those two organizations too, maybe at least knowing where the ceiling is. Like they don't have to worry about creating that new line because clearly Justin Jefferson, he shouldn't be broken. If anything, it's going to be some petty crap where, Jamar Chase gets like $100,000 more or, something like that just to, like we saw with Trevor Lawrence getting paid just barely over Jamar Chase's quarterback up there, Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence breaking the bank. I didn't know Jacksonville had this kind of money. I did not know they rolled like this, but 5-year, $275 million and $200 million in fully guarantees. Holy crap. That's some cash right there for a guy. I don't know. Is it still controversial? Is he a franchise quarterback?
How many other quarterbacks would you want over him in this league? I think you could arguably say 10 for sure. Like you can name 10 names, like, yeah, for sure, like those guys. But then when you start to get in around after that, it's like, I think I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, when he's healthy and he's got a competent head coach, he plays well. So I have no problem with him giving this money. I think at the structure of it, it's like 7 years, like $300 million because of it's on his rookie contract. So it's right under like 44 mil in total when it's all said and done. So it's not a terrible deal, but it's just like, we're going to keep seeing this, wait till Stroud becomes a free agent, wait till, all these other guys, like they're going to want to get paid.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the important part. How you pointed out, like it is tacked on. This is an extension. This isn't just a signing. So kind of like the Patrick Mahomes deal. We are just a few years into this 10-year deal, or 10 plus years when he signed it, and it's looking really good. So I think this one is going to benefit Jacksonville on the back half of this deal. Once they get into year 5-ish of this, year 4, 5, 6, I think they're going to really see that discount where they can kind of flourish with some of that money they spend around, the pieces around him.
Yeah. Again, it just goes to show that you should gamble on the guy that you see being good early compared to waiting, because you'll get a Cowboy situation where now they are basically Dak has them pinned against the wall and just can do whatever he wants and say you have to pay me, because I think he's like an $86 million dead cap next year because of all the contracts they've done. And on top of that, they have to pay Micah. They have to pay CD. It's just they're in hell. So goes to show, just pay the guy early and bank on him being good compared to him I don't know. Now you're going to be in cap hell when they are somewhat decent.
It's funny. You'd think maybe it's because of Ezekiel Elliott that they're scared off. Like, oh, we don't want to screw this up again. Well, just don't do it to your freaking running back, dude. Quarterback, like, do they not realize maybe it's a situation with the position? I don't know. It's the Cowboys. I don't try to dive into that mind too often. It's fun on a Friday night, but not regular basis. It's a little screwy if you can't handle it. And the last one is, I get it, it's rumors. Brian, stay away from those. Those aren't fun. Speculation. Well, this isn't a big network, so I'm going to dive into speculation because that's what's fun for me. Aiyuk. Just a few hours before we're recording this podcast on Monday evening, Aiyuk dropped a little bit of fun on social media, talking to, I guess, Jaden Daniels over there for Washington, saying that they don't want him. Getting a little emotional, maybe. Is he... I guess that's kind of where I'm leaning. I feel like it is Aiyuk over him and Debo that's going to get moved. But do we see this before the trade deadline this year? Or I really think the Niners should finish out the season with him and then move on.
So I have a very hard time them trading him. Like the 49ers have all the leverage. Like they just picked up his 5th year. They have 2 more years of control. Like he can sit out, but again, like you really want to go to the Le'Veon Bell route where like, all right, I'm going to sit out and then try to get a contract elsewhere. Like, no, like he's going to want to get paid. So he's going to play this year. He just wants money. And he just saw what Justin got. So he's probably thinking like somewhere right around that ballpark because he is good and he had his best season. I just think that the 49ers will not trade him, but they will get a contract. And like, think about this. Like Debo did the same thing, right? Requested a trade, wanted to get paid. He finally got paid, right? Joey Bosa, same thing, was, frustrated, was holding out, but he got paid. The most important thing for them though, CMC was like, they needed to make sure they got him signed to make him happy because he runs Shanahan's system so well. And they can basically just, make sure he's the key focal point. Now they can start to worry about like, is Aiyuk worth it more than Debo? Because they just drafted Ricky Pearsall as well. I just think in a sense like Aiyuk is not being moved this year, potentially next year, but he will not be moved. He will be a San Francisco 49er this year.
Well, you're no fun. It kind of cancels out this question I was going to throw at you. If the Niners get smacked with a new rule before the start of the season, they have to trade Aiyuk. Where would you like to see him go? Or where do you think his fantasy? Because that's my big worry. Is I don't know if he'll see more success than he is in San Francisco. Depending, I mean, obviously if he goes as the pure number 1, possibly, but just the system works so well with him. His ADOT last year was incredible. But is there a spot that you see that he would really, his fantasy value would increase? I guess is the question.
Increase? Oh man, It's tough. Like he'd have to go somewhere and be just like the alpha. And there's one name. I know they drafted somebody, but Jacksonville. I mean, he would be the number 1 option. It wouldn't be Brian Thomas. They drafted him, but Aiyuk would be the number 1 option. And I think he could probably put up similar stats, even better stats. So if I had to pick somebody like off the top of my head, it was Jacksonville. Second would be the Cardinals or Carolina.
Ooh. See, Cardinals, I don't know if they trade him in division, but I love that because I like the idea of T. Higgins going there as well. If we can get a trade or just postseason. Man, I do like that. Jacksonville, I think that was part of my pre-draft predictions was that Jacksonville was going to trade that first round pick for Aiyuk, but clearly that's
not a bad call.
That didn't play out as well as I hoped. I guess if I had to pick one, I don't know. Let's say Buffalo. Send him up there to Buffalo. Keon Coleman gives him a little bit more time to develop. We don't have to rely on Curtis Samuel and have these debates all off season.
My only problem with that, Buffalo just went through a headache with Stephon Diggs, and Aiyuk's already kind of showing like, like I wouldn't say like diva talk, but like he wants to get paid. So like, do you want to go through this like again? Like I'm sure they have trauma. So and I don't want to compare Aiyuk to Stephon Diggs, but I'm just saying in this aspect of it. So
I get that. Yeah, I guess what was it? Year 2, he got put in the doghouse kind of by Shanahan just for whatever reasons it was.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's get to these coaching changes because it's racked my brain here. There's a handful of teams we have to get to. I guess, was there a favorite out of this coaching cycle that you were really excited to see?
I mean, I guess the fact that Buffalo retained Joe Brady, so you know what to expect with his offense, I guess. And I also did like the Dave Canales hiring for Carolina. I thought like that was like their potentially best hire because no one really wanted to go there because it's been such a disaster. But Dave Canales has fixed I mean, you can say fixed, but like made Geno Smith his best year, and then Baker Mayfield was also his best year. So this gives somewhat of hope for Carolina and Bryce Young, which they just invested so much capital into being, good. So I think that's my best pick.
I like it a lot too. I think it might have something to do with how in love I've fallen with Deontay Johnson and his ADP this year. I can't stop drafting him right now in best ball drafts, but I think Canales, it's a cool storyline. Like you said, the Geno to the Baker to Bryce Young. We say Bryce Young is yuck. Nobody likes him. Geno got bounced around the league forever because he wasn't good. So I don't think it's a terrible storyline to fall into. It's not one of those ones we're going to like overhype this offseason and not realize, there was a glaring obvious he sucks. There's still a possibility that we still see something competitive out of Carolina, at least maybe a middling offense. Joe Brady, Cook, the running back, I just can't get. It seems like he should be set up for a great year. He finished last year awesome. I don't know. I'm not buying into it. I guess it is ADP. I wish he was just a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're drafting him at ceiling because he's not going to get a bunch of rushing touchdowns. You're basically going to get a bunch of yards through catching and also through rushing, which I think he should touch the ball quite a bit, but like the touchdowns won't be there. He'd have to break off because as soon as they get to the goal line, I don't imagine him being in that backfield. So unless something changes over this offseason, but it doesn't seem that way. So they just drafted Ray Davis, the guy from Buffalo or Kentucky, sorry, and he's a big back. So I think that could be someone more of their goal line back. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a late round best ball exposure. Oh, God, I got to quit bringing that show in here. Sorry, folks. I did it again. My bad. Give me one more mulligan, I promise. Rest of the show. So we talked about some fun. Let's slide into some uglier teams here a little bit. Just got to touch on them for a second. Resident Colts fans here. We're not but we're proving we're non-biased. The Patriots, Gerard Mayo. Is there any hope with this team? Are you excited about maybe just like... There is rushing upside with Drake May. Not a whole lot, a handful, a few hundred yards, but he might prove to be a decently good streaming quarterback later in redraft. Any excitement for him at all, or is this just that's the Patriots again?
So his offensive coordinator is Alex Van Pelt, who was the offensive coordinator in Cleveland, which, I mean, obviously Cleveland has done great things. So learning under that playbook, if it can transition well over to New England, I think it suits Drake May pretty well. So yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, he's just got to be a competent head coach. But again, now, again, speaking way too far in the future, let's say Alex Van Pelt has a hell of a year. Like New England surprises people. Now Alex Van Pelt is in head coaching talks because like this is the last year for the Texans. Bobby Slowick will get a head coaching job next year. He for whatever reason he didn't want it, but I mean, next year he will have Pickens because it seems like him and Ben Johnson will be 1A, 1B for who they want as a head coach. So that's what happens when you have a defensive head coordinator as a head coach.
Which is hard because you don't always retain it. You've got guys like Vrabel in Tennessee who he lost his OC and he could replicate it because the guy's still a good head coach. Whereas some of these defensive coordinators, they're good at what they do. They may not be that great overall head coach despite, that OC that rotates in there. So it'll be interesting. Gerard Mayo, I'm rooting for him. Not a Patriots fan at all, but I'm rooting to see the change. Let's get out of this Belichick era. Let's see what Gerard Mayo can bring. Probably one of the flashiest hirings this offseason was the Chargers. Brought in a whole slew of guys. We've got Jim Harbaugh coming out of college, back to the NFL. Greg Roman from his time from Baltimore is now back over there. And then Jesse Minter is their defensive coordinator coming from Michigan as well. Are we... is this just going to be ground and pound, bloody nose football? Is there anybody that's actually... Like, Gus Edwards is dealing with a little bruising right now. Like... I don't know. Are we excited about the running game, the passing game? I'm not really sure. I go back and forth.
I think it's a list of things really. So Gus Edwards is being undervalued if he's the RB1 because his dude's going to get 15 to 20 touches. That's crazy. I don't see how in the world how he doesn't become like an RB2 territory because they just took with their first round pick the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. So they now have, Rashawn Slater on the left side. Joe Alt on the right side. They have a pretty decent, interior line. I just don't see how they don't average 4.5 yards a carry.
It's going to be a lot of touchdowns. Him being double-digit touchdowns, it should be the easiest over now on the season.
I think the cheapest option though too is Herbert. Like, let's just say you go no quarterback for whatever reason. Like, you can take Justin Herbert like super late, and like he's always going to put up numbers. That's an option too, in my opinion.
I think it's great. He's actually continued to fall. You know, he was right around that QB 11, 12. The draft hit, and he just plummeted again. You know, they picked up Lad McConkey. You know, some rookie talent to infuse in there with Quentin Johnston and Palmer. So not a great wide receiver core, but Greg Roman didn't have that in Baltimore. You know, they had a first-round pick who was a later-round first-round pick in, you know, Marquise Brown or I'm trying to think of the other one, that Bateman. You know, these guys weren't great, but they made do. And Greg Roman's offenses are insanely efficient. Like Lamar had just unreal efficiency. So, yeah, like you said, Herbert might be the best deal of this whole situation here.
My only problem with that, though, let's just say like Greg Roman was bailed out by Lamar Jackson. There's a possibility that could be true because Lamar Jackson's just a very special talent, and he makes any offense look good because he's really, really good. So, but also Justin Herbert's good too. But like obviously Lamar is a little bit different with the use of his legs and rolling out. So, yeah, I'm just very curious to see how much of it's going to be on Greg Roman because it will be on his shoulders because Herbert's a great player, but he's not going to be able to, you know, do the things that Lamar does.
Do you think we can see a decent floor rushing wise from Herbert this year? Like him finishing with 400 yards, you know, 30, 40 games somewhere in there?
I definitely think they're going to, you know, have some, you know, triple options back there where he takes it to the house one time. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. The Chargers, they're in a rough situation too, just playing the Chiefs, you know, a couple times a year. Their schedule's, it's supposed to be pretty decent, but what can you really pull from that as far as fantasy goes? I think one of my favorite coaching signings this year, offensive coordinator, was a guy I had in my mouth constantly last year, just dogging him, yelling at him, talking trash. It's Arthur Smith. I think this guy I'm excited to see what Pittsburgh does. All in all, I don't want to be excited about the pass catchers just linked to Russ. Don't want to be involved in all that. Well, then what would you rely on? The running game. It's exactly what Arthur Smith is going to do. He's going to go in there and cause chaos. Well, when you're already banking on the Steelers' offense to be chaos anyway, you ride it then. So I think Najee, Jalen Warren, I think both of them are going to be maybe not necessarily discounts, but I don't think you're overpaying for either one of them. I think they're both going to be useful this year in fantasy. Arthur Smith has proved that he's going to maybe give everything to Najee, and then Warren's going to steal the touchdowns or vice versa. You know, like there's going to be enough chaos and enough pushing on this run game that I'm very excited to see what this team can do. And there's Freiermuth. Can we get this tight end some love? Can we get the ball to him? No, it's going to be Darnell Washington, number 2.
You forgot the best name out of them all, Cordell Patterson.
Don't do it now. See, I did it on purpose.
I mean,
We're
you know,
not drafting him, right?
No, I don't know anybody who's drafted him. That's absolutely crazy.
We've got to throw it out there. But the upside of the kick return, Patterson's a great guy to be seen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, out there. So like, does that upside swing it to you at all?
No, because you have to bank on like a one trick play of him going to the house on a kickoff. Like, no, I don't think anybody will ever draft him. But I do think it's interesting that like Najee and Jalen are in the back end because you just don't know which one's going to take the workload, and they both are up for a contract extension. Najee's was obviously declined because they just want to see if it'll work with Arthur Smith. I mean, if I had to pick one out of the two, I think Jalen Warren's more talented, but I just for some reason I can't unsee that Najee having more carries and more touches than Jalen Warren.
I guarantee it. Cordero Patterson will be the number 1 trending picked up player at some point this year in Sleeper. He's going to get some fluke 2 touchdown game and maybe return one on a kickoff. And all of a sudden people are because I got a home league. I've got a home league with people that they do stuff like that. They pick up the guy that they shouldn't. It's just, I know it's going to happen. It's going to irritate the hell out of me, and it's probably going to screw me too in the end. Guarantee it.
I can't see a world where that happens, though.
Like, it's just one of those fluke games, you know, like it just goes his way, and then everybody's like, oh, that's the guy. He had 14% snaps, but he had 3 touchdowns, you know. Throw one else out there. Is there Seahawks? You excited about that situation out there? New OC?
I do like Ryan Grubb because it's what we saw Michael Penix, playing with Roman Dunze and McMillan and Polk, and how that was a high flying offense. I think Geno Smith can replicate it. He's got the offensive play. He's got his DK. He's got Jackson Smith-Njigba, and he's got Tyler Lockett. So he's got 3 wide receivers. I think if there's someone to buy in on, that's where their ceiling is going to be, not matched by their ADP, it's Seattle. Like, I'm taking a ton of DK to be my wide receiver 1. If I do pass on one of the early guys and I take a running back like a Bijan or Brees, I ended up taking DK because he'll either be my wide receiver 2, but in theory, I could see him finishing as a top 5 guy.
Yeah, one of those easy bets every season to break double-digit touchdowns. Just his body size, the way he works, that's, easy bet just for an end zone fella. Yeah. What else? Is there another team that jumps out at you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Nah, the only other team that I'm kind of intrigued by is Cliff Kingsbury going to basically repeat what he did with Kyler, since he has Jaden Daniels, another running quarterback. I know Arizona fans absolutely hated it, so I'm curious if he's going to learn from his mistakes, or it's just going to be the same thing over and over again.
He strikes me as that type of guy, that he's going to continue to try the same offense over and over until he gets fired and hired by the correct team that it finally works. Maybe this is it. Jaden Daniels is an immense talent. Heisman winner, amazing with his legs, but he's a skinny fella. He's a skinny guy.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw it out there, a scenario where Jaden Daniels is an elite talent. He gets them close to 9 wins, 9 and 8. So they're in the hunt for the playoffs. Does Cliff Kingsbury get interviewed for a head coaching job next year?
I don't think so. If they do it back-to-back seasons, where he shows that it's not just a fluke season with an amazing talent, I could see somebody's going to be dumb enough and desperate enough where they'd give him an interview, but I just don't. He's like a Josh McDaniels. He may be creative, he may have a good offensive mind, but I don't think he's not a leader. Like I said, I was out there in Lubbock, my wife and I at Texas Tech for Cliff Kingsbury and the Patrick Mahomes show. I got to watch it. It was so exciting, but if we were actually rooting for the team and not offense, it sucked. Everything, he's just... They thought he was a pretty fella. They loved their pretty Cliff out there, but and he had a ring. Everybody loved the fact that he sat on the bench to get himself a ring. Cliff, if you ever want to be on the show, man, come on. Now that I'm done shit talking you.
I'm sure I want to come right on now.
Right? Yeah. Don't worry. We'll put you right in the middle. You can be right down there with us. But no, I don't think anybody will. I think there's going to be too many hot commodities. Like you said, the OCs from Detroit and Houston, they're going to be popping. And there's going to be a couple more that Joe Brady. Does Buffalo make a big enough splash where he can finally throw his hat in? Was he the head coach in Carolina, or was he the OC?
Joe Brady? I want to say he was. I don't think he was ever a head coach, was he?
Yeah, he was. He was Matt Rule's OC. Maybe. I guess I was.
Yeah, he was Carolina's OC. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, that's what it was. I couldn't remember if he was the head coach of the OC. Yeah, he was behind Rule. Okay, so yeah maybe he finally gets a shot. Not that I thought he deserved the OC spot in Buffalo, but he proved it right this past year. He really turned that offense around, and the team made that playoff push.
Very true.
Cool. You got anything else for the folks before we get out of here?
I've got nothing, man.
Well, tell them where they can find you. They're excited. They want to see where they get more of those flannels.
You guys can find me. Dude, hey, TikTok Shop has some really good flannels, okay? You can find me on X at FFANBMulk, and then I am in the Facebook group for Fantasy Football Advice Network. That's where I'll respond back most. So that's where you can find me in most places.
Yeah, I bet you can get some bitchin' sales on flannels in June and July. Probably not quite the hot commodity.
$10, all right? $10.
Okay. All right. I'll pull it back. That's a steal right there.
Yeah.
If you want to look for more of my stuff, I do have the Best Ball Show over here on the Fantasy Football Advice Network channel. Too much best ball, too much fantasy football. It's your favorite 2 shows. But if you want to dabble in a little bit more, you've got the Fantasy Forecasts, Operation Domination, and of course Corey and Kyle. The rest of us, come check me out on Twitter at @too_much_Brian. But until then, we've got to get out of here. We'll see y'all later.